Hello, I thought I'd do another video just before Christmas. Got the tree in the background to give it a bit of festive cheer. I've got a few things lately and there's some old stuff as usual that I wanted to just fit in. Managed to finish the Christmas shopping today at last, so we're all ready. And it's always fun when you're Christmas shopping to get something for yourself as well. But the last video seemed to be got some good responses for having the sound clips. So see if I can get some more of those on. Enjoyed doing that. And see how it goes. So anyway, let's start with some soul music, as usual. Now, for many years, I've always got by on the music of Leroy Hutson, thanks to these two superb compilations, which came out, must have been late 90s, I think. That was when I just finished school. And great, brilliant. Basically everything you need with Leroy Hutson on these two records. Really nice. But just recently, I spoilt myself a bit, and I did actually manage to get one of his original LPs, this one, Hutson, which came out in 1978. It's not as famous perhaps as the first two, which are sort of the hallmark of every great thing that he did. But this one's stacked full of great songs. Get to This, You'll Get to Me, Closer to the Source, Heaven Right Here on Earth. Brilliant songs on this one, and he's looking particularly dapper on the cover as well. Really nice. Comes with a lyric sheet as well. Really pleased to get that one. And one day maybe I'll get the others, but they're pretty expensive, the others, I think. So I might have to wait on that one. Keeping with the soul music, a lot of soul ladies. This is an interesting one. Free to Pain. This is an album produced by Holland Dozier Holland, and it's on, you can see it here, there. Oh, you can't see it. On the Invictus label, which is their label that they set up, I think, after they departed from Motown. This was from 1973. And it's pretty good. I mean, it does suffer slightly from a lot of, particularly female artists, have this thing. They'll have albums which have one or two great songs on them, and then lots of quite boring, noodly, sort of loungy, cocktail, dull songs on them, and I think this does suffer a bit from that. The good bits are really good, but some of it just hasn't really struck me to make a whole album's worth of greatness. What is good though, We Got to Find a Way is perhaps a classic sort of Holland Dozier Holland sound, but the one I really like was Mother Misery's favourite child. Really nice in the Marlena Shaw style of singing. Marlena Shaw, another great singer who I think she's channeling a bit on this, who has the same problem sometimes. Marlena Shaw's great and she's got brilliant songs, but albums, every album has two, maybe three great songs on it, and then lots of so-so stuff, which is a shame. Anyway, another singer here who has a very, very consistent album. This one re-released on Soul Brother Records. This is Sandra Wright. This is fantastic. This was an album that which was recorded, I think, in the early 70s sometime, and was, or the mid 70s was it? And was going to be released on Stax, but Stax folded just at that time, so it never actually came out. It was released eventually in the 80s, I think the end of the 80s in the UK, and is very well loved amongst sort of Northern Soul. I think they call it modern soul, do they? People. And it's stuffed full of hits here, and it's now been re-released by Soul Brother Records, or several years ago it was re-released, and it's a really nice addition, this one. Really solid production all the way through. All the musicians are the usual sort of Muscle Shoals, Southern Soul people that got that lovely bits of organ, very funky all the way through. Midnight Affairs, good dancey track on there. There's other great stuff as well. I haven't listened to it enough to really be able to talk knowledgeably about it, but every time I have played it, it's been brilliant, so I love that one. Now here's a record I actually showed before, but I love it so much I'm going to show it again, and maybe I'll put a little sample later on. This is a a record by Andrea. Oh, what's her name? Andrea. It's completely escaped me now. She's not actually named on here, but she plays the flute, and this is an album from the late 70s in a style of salsa music, which became very popular in sort of the late 70s, made a bit of a resurgence. I think she was part of the group Charanga 76, and this album is from 1980, it says here, although I have a feeling it may have been recorded originally a bit earlier than that. Andrea, can't remember her name, but Bratchfield, that's it, Bratchfield, yeah, something really weird. I think she's from the United States actually, and she's like she was at university or one of the big music schools, and just fell in with a lot of Latin musicians and started making this. And this is great. This album is just full of grooves. A lot of it each song starts very sort of sweet and innocent sounding, and you perhaps easily switch off. But when they actually get their groove going, this is absolutely on fire, this record. I really love it. And people don't know this record at all. There's not even any clips really on YouTube that you can find, not many, not the good songs anyway. So I love this. Play a bit of that. Sticking with the Latin music as well, here's a good old classic, Cortijo and his Time Machine. It actually says it in Spanish and in English. Cortijo was a really big band leader back in the golden age of salsa, and recorded famously with the singer Ismael Rivera. But in the mid-70s, 1974, for a laugh, it would appear, he decided to make this album, which is not a typical Latin or salsa album. It's very much a New York album, and he's got a whole load of sort of jazz and rock musicians on here as well, and it's an incredibly funky record. I love it. This is obviously a slightly dodgy bootleg, I think. The original is not so easy to find because it wasn't a hit when it came out. People are a bit sniffy about it. It wasn't Latin enough for some people, and the sort of funky party people, I don't know, kind of went over their heads as well. But it's an absolute gem, this record. It goes through all the motions. It's got that sort of deep down African sounding bit. It's got serious Latin stuff on it, and it's got some pretty hardcore, funky, sort of boogaloo sounds, but just really funky, really lovely. I love this record. It's great. Some hip hop, which I was really pleased to find a while back now. This is Idan, Beauty and the Beat. Now this has actually just been re-released very expensively for Record Store Day or one of those. Really an album worth having. I mean, there's lots of hip hop albums which sort of come and go and you can kind of forget about, but this is one of those seminal albums which works on all levels, because he's an interesting rapper. He's obsessed by the history of hip hop, so he's a proper sort of hip hop nerd, I think. But what's so great about this is the production as well, it's a full-on psychedelic album. It's not typical hip-hop particularly. I mean, it's got its samples and its beats and all of that, and he loves his nods to old school sounds, but he's got these weird tones and sort of frequencies constantly going away in the background. The album that he did earlier than this kind of hints at that, but this is where this sound really comes. Psychedelic hip-hop is beautiful, really great. I was really pleased that I managed to get this. It's got a wicked scratch down one side, but it still plays fine. And I remember when it came out, and a friend of mine lent me the CD, and so I had a tape of it for ages, but I never thought I'd get a vinyl copy of it. And I do, and it's brilliant. And if you really like that sort of thing, do look out for the reissue that they've just done, because it's definitely worth having. And one more album to show. Again, another album that I have shown before. Motion, one of my favourite groups. British sort of fusion of reggae, of everything, into this absolute masterpiece. But I thought I'd just show some of the one of the 12 inches. It's up here. There you go. Curiously, they're called Movement on this record, but I can assure you it is Motion. And this is No Man is an Island. beautiful song. And on the 12-inch, it just sounds so lovely, so big, so bassy. And for our Prime Minister and the times that we're living in, maybe there's a message, you never know. Anyway, let's see how this goes and see if we can do a few samples. So, happy Christmas and a very Merry New Year. See you later.